What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Dipped in Tone. I'm Rhett.
I'm Zach.
You okay, bud?
Yeah.
You wanna? I mean, you don't have to tell everyone.
I got sick and I'm still not great. So yeah, you know, when you have a kid and they spend time around other kids, especially other kids that you as a parent might not know as well, you're like, go play with them, and they're like, okay, and then you know, a day later they're just sick. This is what you end up with. Not feeling good. I lost 9 pounds.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Probably mostly water, but you know.
I mean, I knew you were sick. You've been telling me about it, but like, that's substantial. Like,
yes, it was.
I have I believe it's called emetophobia. Like,
okay,
the pure fear of puking. It's like, it's a whole thing. And so when you told me you were sick, it like, people who are watching or listening have emetophobia, I think will identify with me on this, where it's like, you feel sick all of a sudden. You're like, oh no, what have I done? Do I need to wash my, like,
yeah.
I'm so sorry. That's my worst nightmare. And I'm sorry you had to deal with that. It's like, ugh.
It's okay. I am normally the most resilient one, which is annoying to my wife to no end because she is so healthy. And then they all get sick and I'm just like, I'm fine. It's a runny nose or something. But, yeah, you know, hey. So that's mostly what I've been doing. That and then getting caught up on all on all these guys, the Black Friday Mjolnirs, which by the time this comes out, hopefully all these will have shipped. But we are just just trying to figure out how to make all these things. So thank you to everyone who got one, and we will get them to you soon.
Yeah, that was a big deal for you guys. That was
crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. But how are you doing? I'm surely better than me.
Well, yeah, I didn't lose 9 pounds. So there's that. I'm trying to think what's happened over the last week since we recorded, and I can't pinpoint anything specific. It has literally been a blur for me the last week. Like, I don't know if it's just because the end of the year, the holidays or whatever, but like I'm barely hanging on, man. I don't know. I've been working 8 to 12 hours a day every day for the last week, and I can't point to anything specific that I have done other than a couple of videos here and there. And I'm like, I don't remember doing that video. I kind of blacked out during it, I think. I'm even having deja vu right now, which might be a weird sign of fatigue or something. I don't know. I think it's the curse of working for yourself in a way too, because you feel like you work like throughout the day, you feel like I'm doing okay. Like I'm working really hard, and then the day ends and you think back on it and you're like, I accomplished nothing. Yeah. And it's the worst feeling because honestly, because like doing the field notes like in the lists has been so good for me. Yep, me too.
There you go. Hey, to keep my head on straight. But even then, I'll look back and I'm like, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. You know, so
it's the blessing and the curse of the list that Adam Savage didn't talk about in his book, Every Tool's a Hammer, which both of us have read. Yes. He has a whole chapter on list making, which is why I started the field notes thing. And I believe you did too, right? Yeah,
man. And like if you can, like I listened to the book, I have it, but I rarely have time to read. But when I went and looked at the book, he actually has like examples of how to do a lot of these things, and it's really cool. So
have you tried do you know about like the bullet journaling?
No.
I got into this a couple months ago with mixed results. You might dig it. It's like I bought an actual bullet journal, which is formatted for it, but bullet journaling is this it's this way of structuring a notebook for like calendars, and it breaks down things in an interesting way. Apparently this was like all the rage 5 years ago, and I just found out about it, but it's been pretty cool. You might think about checking it out because it's not just daily like to-do lists, but it's also like you break down your year, important dates, then you break down the month, then you break down the week, and then you break down the day, and then you can like go through and knock stuff off the list. It's pretty interesting. So
Matthew kind of does some of that for me, which is nice because he'll like anytime like Mythos had a wild year, and this probably be one of the last episodes of the year?
Yeah, this should be one of the last episodes of the year.
So, like, wild ups and downs, but all in all, it was very a good year. And like moving into the next year, usually we have a pretty firm game plan on what we want to do and things we want to hopefully release. And so in that, we have like this big like calendar with like what limited edition colorways and what models and stuff and what month and what we hope to sell revenue wise and profit wise and like all this stuff kind of planned out. So that's like our loose framework that we kind of are working around. Sometimes it works. Most time it doesn't. But for me, I feel like, and maybe, I don't know how you are, the thing that helps me more than anything is only making a daily list, because the moment I make anything bigger than that, then I panic. And I panic often.
The downside to me of the bullet journal is that I will take the time to like plan out my month, like important dates, and then I just never go back and look at it again. Like I wrote it down and then forgot about it. So, and it just becomes a fancy daily list for me. But you know, list making, it'll change your life. Cool. Okay. So we got a really interesting episode today. We are going to be joined by a gentleman named Cyril from Reverb, reverb.com, the website. And we're going to go over Reverb's lists of gear sold, like the top 20 lists in different categories with their basically head of analytics and statistics. Really interesting conversation that we had with him. I'm really excited about it. But before we get into that, we want to thank the sponsor of today's episode, which is reverb.com, the website.
Yay.
So we've been talking with him for a while about coming on to sponsor the show. We're really excited to partner with them on this episode. If you look in the description of this video or in the show notes, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you're going to find a link to our new Reverb landing page, which is going to be kind of our like home base for a lot of the stuff that's happening here on the show. We're going to have links there to the gear that we talk about, like our Shills of the week. We'll have links on that Reverb landing page. We've also got some things like, you know, some of my favorite gear, some of Zach's favorite gear, and it'll be updated periodically as we go through the show and talk about new stuff and add new things like that.
And it's going to be a place for you to submit those Reverb listings that are either yours or that you find. We're starting to get some of those. And so that's going to be an easy way for us to keep track of it and for you guys to submit them to us. So thank you guys at Reverb for sponsoring Dipped in Tone. We appreciate it. And we are excited to be like working with someone who can help just connect the entire gear community and show you guys some of the stuff that we're crazy about and offer and show you guys where you can get it yourself.
Yeah, this sponsorship we were really excited about because it's a partnership that I think makes a lot of sense for us here on the show because I think I mentioned this in the talk with Cyril, but we went back and looked at my Reverb listing or my Reverb profile, and I've been a member since they began, which I didn't realize. So I have been a diehard Reverb user since the beginning, which I believe you have too. I mean, it's like sort of the end all be all marketplace for used gear, which we get into in this interview with Cyril here. So
yeah, I'm curious because you said that, and then it made me think when did I start using a Reverb? So I'm going back to because my Reverb has like evolved from Zach's to Mythos, and even from then it like changed Mythos email addresses to be more professional. But like I don't even remember when Reverb started. You said 2016 is when?
No, I think it's 2012.
Oh, 2012?
I think so.
Oh man, well there's no way that I can find. Let's see, start date 2000. I wonder if I can find it just real quick. I can't find it.
Great.
Sorry.
The suspense was killing me. That was awesome. Anyways, huge thank you to Reverb for sponsoring this episode. Check out that link in the description. Hear about some of the gear we're going to talk about today. Submit the Reverb listing through that link. Again, this is a listing of your own making or one that you came across that you think is particularly interesting and you want us to talk about here on the show. And also, huge thanks to our patrons for signing up. We have a new tier happening. You can join in and watch the show live while we're recording it, and you're going to get access to each episode's after show hang, which have been a ton of fun for us to do. And you can watch that live or later on the Patreon page as we post it.
That's it. Well, without further ado, here's Cyril, and let's get into some deep reverb numbers.
Cyril, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited for this one.
So for people who are watching and listening, what is your official title at Reverb?
Yeah, so I'm the head of analytics and data science at Reverb. So I oversee our teams that are building reports, building models, kind of behind the scenes. So we're waking up every day, looking at the trends, seeing what's happening, in the business and across the industry. And then we do a lot around how our marketing campaigns are performing. Whenever we release new features on the website, we're testing those, running experiments. So it's kind of like the dream job for me because I love gear and I love data, and this allows me to bring those two things together.
Yeah, you're the perfect man for the show today because you will be able to sort of keep us on the rails and give us real data to back up or completely break down and disprove Zach and I and our theories that we kick around here on the show. So I'm very stoked for this episode.
Yeah, likewise.
So December 10th, you guys published you published at least your best-selling guitars, and some other things have kind of trickled out. But you guys do this, or at least have been doing this for the past couple of years, where you kind of break down best-selling new, used, new. And it's always pretty exciting, I think, from our side of things to see what kind of lives in that top 10 or 20 positions in the guitar space. Is that building up to that? Is that pretty exciting for you guys to build those to look back at the year and say, hey, look at, how well this did or that did?
Oh, for sure. Because partially, just day to day and, week to week, you're so involved in just, the minutia of the business. It's really nice to sometimes take a step back and see, what's happened over the year. Especially when you see, some things that are surprising in the data, which, I think there's a few things that we can talk about as we go through. But it's always really cool to just see what the top sellers were. And sometimes when things change from the prior year or prior years in the past.
Well, let's get into it because you were giving us a rundown right before we hit record of all the data that you're bringing us today, and it's a lot. It's an impressive list. So do you want to start with guitars? We want to start with electric guitars, best sellers this year, and start to sort of break that down, and then we'll maybe go into pedals, amps, and some sort of special things that we talked about. So
for sure.
Yeah, what do we got?
Yeah. So, in terms of the best selling guitars this year, I think a lot of them are probably pretty obvious to people. Some of the things that you might expect. A lot of the Fender Player Series, some of the American Pro 2 guitars. We got the PRS SE Silver Sky, some of the Gibson Les Pauls. So, the number one seller this year was the Fender Player Telecaster. That one actually was number 3 last year, so it moved up in the rank. You can see on here, number 2 was the American Pro 2 Strat, and kind of rounding off the top 3 is the PRS SE Silver Sky. That one's also interesting because this is the list of just overall best sellers. When we just look at the used items, the PRS SE Silver Sky was actually the number one used item, which really means it was the guitar that was bought and sold the most between individual people, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I want to touch on that in a second, but if we go back up to the main list here. So this is all guitars, electric guitars sold on Reverb, new and used for this year. The Player Telly, the American Pro 2, and the Silver Sky. The interesting thing to me is that it's the Player 1 Telecaster, right? Not the Player 2. So what do we glean from that? Is this mostly people that were selling their Player 1 to get into maybe the new version or to get into something else? Or what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of trading up that we see. One of the interesting stats actually that we see at Reverb is about 60% of people who sell will go on and buy something else. So there's a lot of that just, kind of selling something in order to buy, the next item. And, I think for a lot of people, myself included, the Fender Player was kind of like the entry point, or at least when I bought it was the Made in Mexico Strat. I don't think they had the Player name yet, but that's just like a really good entry point to get into guitars, and that's also why it tends to be something that's purchased a lot, but also then resold as people kind of move on that journey.
And I think did they blow some of those out to like build up to the Player 2 release too? You think that? I couldn't remember if that was part of it, because I know Fender has definitely made a move over the past couple of years of not doing more direct things and like kind of keeping that inventory fresh for dealers too. So they want to kind of like shuffle the deck, so to speak. So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, I think that's part of it also. Because the Player 2 came out, I think this year. Or if not, it was like the end of last year. So, they had released the Player Plus a few years ago, and then, kind of moved to the Player 2. So we did see, the price even of brand new players come down as, just kind of moving through that old inventory as they were kind of building up to, like the second part of the series, or the, Mark II.
Another thing I'm seeing on here that's jumping out to me is number 18, the Squier J. Mascis Jazzmaster. When I did a Jazzmaster shootout video earlier this year on my channel, I had so many people telling me that I should have included a J. Mascis. It's like, more so than any other like signature guitar from another artist I have seen. It's like there's more buzz around that J. Mascis Jazzmaster. So it's cool to see it here in the top 20 of all Reverb guitars, electric guitars sold for this year.
Yeah, that one's been really popular. And there's actually a few signature series that were a little bit lower, kind of in like the top 50 that aren't on here. Like the Corey Wong Strat was, a really good seller this year. The Johnny Marr Jag, sold really well. Even like the Dimebag Daryl, Dean guitar. Like these signatures, they just, people love them.
Yeah, it's interesting that a guitar that's been out, because the J. Mascis Jazzmaster came out ages ago now, but it still just had such a foothold. I think in the modding community, because I feel like most people who want to get into Jazzmaster kind of use that as the entry point to that's where you start tweaking and messing with pickups and getting to know those guitars. So it's cool that it's still there. I think one thing that's pretty interesting is oftentimes like you see so many people kind of ragging on Gibson for their high prices and all this stuff, and et cetera, et cetera. We could go on forever. But in 6 and 7 are two Gibson guitars, Les Pauls, that are $27.99. They're expensive guitars, like considerably more than everything else really around it. And I think that's kind of a testament to how popular just the Les Paul truly is. That's two different models, still, just basically a Les Paul standard, but taking up 2 slots in the top 10 is, it's kind of like sometimes when you get in this world, you can't see the forest for the trees sort of thing. And I feel like people often forget how like desirable those iconic instruments still are. And this list to me just reaffirms that it's all about Tele Strats, Les Pauls, and PRS.
Okay, so as the numbers guy, as the data guy, when you're looking at this list in particular, is there anything that's jumping out to you as interesting or odd or a significant shift from last year?
Nothing jumped out too much. Kind of what you mentioned, the J. Mascis Jazzmaster being on there, I think is really cool. There's kind of 2 other, I don't know, things going on that I think are interesting. One is, and it's only on here, really on number 20, but these JV modified, so like the made in Japan guitars, we've really seen, a big increase in just the, I think understanding and like demand for those instruments. So, you've got the JVs, you've got a lot of those reissues that were, made in Japan or crafted in Japan, and then those Aerodynes. And so, the individual models don't sell, quite as well, but when you take that whole group of instruments, they're actually, one of the most popular kind of like model families that we sell on Reverb. And, that's something that's really built up, I would say, over the last, 5 years where, previously people just didn't really know about those guitars.
Yeah, I think the word is out on the MIJ stuff that like just about any guitar, regardless of brand, if it's made in Japan, you can pretty well bet that it's going to be a super well-made, incredibly well put together guitar. I've got a couple of MIJ Fenders and a Gretsch. My Black Falcon is one of the made in Japan ones. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. Actually, this ES 175 that I've got back here, it's not a Gibson, it's a Greco.
Oh man, I just bought a Greco bolt neck Les Paul custom copy from 1990, like last week, 2 weeks ago, and it rips, man. It's so good.
They're so good. So I bought this one actually at this like little shop in Chicago, and they had a 70s actual Gibson ES 175 and this Greco, which this one's probably from the 70s, late 70s. Played them both side by side. The Greco just played better and sounded better, and it was probably a quarter of the price.
Yeah, yeah.
Norlin era versus anything is not a fair fight.
Yeah.
Well, but I think this list is really cool and telling to like kind of what's trending. Well, not even trending, just like the normality of like the gear space, because I think so often we get like we look through gear as in this lens of like Instagram and like our circles, and we only see the things that are kind of fed to us, and we often forget that like the majority of people out there just like this classic stuff. And I think the used list is even more indicative of that, except that ESP is rose to number 13, which is fun. But like what do you guys think about how like cemented the guitar space is in these iconic shapes and guitars? And I don't know if this list like I think the models and the names may fluctuate over the next X amount of years, but I can't foresee in that long amount of time that this is going to be all that different.
I mean, to me, it says that the Strat and the Strat style guitar is what most people think of when they're thinking of an electric guitar. Like if you just grab someone off the street and you ask them to picture or draw an electric guitar, more than likely in my mind, they're going to draw some kind of a Strat. And even more so than the Telecaster, and certainly more than the Les Paul. It's like, that's just ubiquitous. And I think when people get into this world, they start with what they know. And what you said a second ago is really interesting because, yeah, we live and breathe this stuff every day. All of us on this show right now, like this is our jobs and our careers. So we know like all the intricacies and ins and outs of what's happening and what boutique brands are doing what. But the vast majority of guitar players out there don't know or care about most of the stuff that we get lost in the weeds on. They just want a good Strat or a good Les Paul or a good Telly that they can come home after work and noodle around on. And I mean, yeah, I think we see that here on this used list. It's Silver Sky, Strat, Telly, Strat, Les Paul, Strat, Telly, Les Paul. Like it's one of the three pretty much down the entire list. Even that ESP, that's their like single cut model, right?
Yeah, that's like it's basically like a Les Paul.
I mean, the only outlier here that I see is, so we got an SG at 15, Gibson SG Standard from 91 to 2012. Another, I mean, literally it's Les Paul's, Strats, Tellys exclusively.
I'm surprised with 11 that Les Paul Customs from 1970 to 1985
what's up
sold
with that
well to be right in the middle of this list.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Cyril?
Yeah, that one's interesting. I think it's partially because it's a wider like time frame. So 15-year period where these guitars were made, and there's a lot of those out in circulation. So they're just one of those guitars that also tends to be bought and sold pretty regularly. But we really have seen kind of like a rise in I don't know, like respect, I'll say, for the Norlin era, Gibsons, and even like the 70s Fenders too, kind of the post, CBS era, where the prices on those have gone up, compared to where they were, say, 5 or 10 years ago. And I think they're just more desirable than they used to be.
Do you think that that's just because of time? That you're buying a guitar that's now 50 plus years old, depending on what year it is, high 40s to 50 years old? Or is there something that has happened that's caused a shift where people are like, oh no, actually those 70s tellies are pretty good?
I think it's actually two parts. One, I do think that just the fact that it's 50 years old and it's, this vintage instrument is part of it. And related to that, I think there's some survivor bias where, the instruments that continue to like surface and stay around are probably the best of the batch. So, the ones that, were the dogs or the lemons, a lot of times either have been, like modified, redone, maybe refurbished, refretted. Something's happened to them where they're actually more playable. So I think that that's part of it. I don't have a lot of data on that one, but I think that, the ones that are still around are probably better than, they were actually when some of these were actually like produced initially.
Well, and a lot of the people that are buying these are looking for, because their folks are a little, my age and a little bit older. They're looking for birth year instruments, big deal, or they're looking for the gear that their parents had, which is something I've seen from a lot of people my age and a little bit younger. Like, oh my gosh, my dad had a '73 Les Paul, and I would love to have that. And so that kind of brings those things back in vogue in a way, even though, like you said, 5, 6, 7 years ago, everyone you could get those guitars for cheaper than a used Gibson Standard model sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I don't know. It's weird how that has trended upward so drastically, especially Norlin and all those 70s Fenders, because some are okay, but I don't know. In my experience, they're not great.
They're pretty hit or miss, but
yeah,
a lot of that Norlin era Gibson stuff is so weird that it's now cool, and I've even noticed a shift in my own sort of bias towards these things, where a few years ago, there's a shop here in Atlanta called Big House Guitars, and the owner, Russ, when he first opened, like was almost exclusively full of like Norlin era, just weird shit that Gibson was doing. And now I look back at some of those guitars and I'm like, I don't know, that's kind of cool. Like the Les Paul, what was the crazy Les Paul studio model with
the
all
recording?
The Les Paul recording, like
yeah, or an L6S or like any of those weird things.
There's something weird about it and cool about it,
like a Marauder.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we got to talk about, though, number one on this list, PRS SE Silver Sky. So what's going on here? Is this like, we can assume that they sold a ton of these when they came out. Was it last year they announced the SE Silver Sky, or was that even this year? I can't remember.
Oh, no, it's been a few years.
Is it really? Jesus, that's scary. Okay, so what's going on here? Why is this number one on the list?
I think this guitar is just a great value for the money. You can get a new one. They're, $625, $650 in that range, and a new one's $500. And if you kind of compare that to a lot of other guitars in that price range, just in terms of playability, consistency, sound, they're really high quality guitars. So I think that people have just caught on to that and really embraced these guitars.
Like I have one, and it like consistently blows me away with how well it's made and how good it sounds. I had a minor setup done on that guitar, dressing the frets and stuff. Not that it needed much, but it is so good in comparison to anything. I would say almost double the price, that it doesn't surprise me. And of course, John Mayer is still a really big deal.
With this being number one on the used list, though, is this mostly people that we think are selling to trade up to a standard Silver Sky or something else? I know you said that, 60% of people that sell on Reverb are selling to buy something else on the platform. So you think that's what's going on here?
I think that's a big part of it. We see a lot of like brand loyalty. So a lot of times when people sell, say, Fender or a PRS or a Gibson, they just tend to buy within that same brand. So yeah, I imagine a lot of these people are probably trading up for the actual like Silver Sky John Mayer model, or any of the other PRS models like Custom 24 or any of the other like single cut kind of higher quality models. Because it's like this is kind of a good gateway to getting into PRSs.
It's interesting that people are the brand loyalty being that high. I'd never really considered that, but I guess people do treat this like they treat cars. Like, oh, I'm a Ford guy, I only buy Fords, or I'm a PRS guy, I only buy PRSs. I guess that makes sense.
I would be curious to see, because like I think one of the things that, and something that whenever I log into the back of Dipped in Tone and look at all the comment section, we did a video with Paul, and it's probably our most commented on thing, and it continues to get commented on because some people just love to hate that guy and act like he's just a snake oil salesman. But I feel like this is a bit of the proof that Paul knows how to make a great guitar, and the people who just care about playing guitar and not reading comment sections are only interested in that. I would love to know how well PRS like stacks up, lower in this list, because undoubtedly they're nowhere near as big as Fender or Gibson. But I'd be curious about that. But if we can move on to like effects pedals or something else, if you guys want to talk about that, or jump into amps, I would love to like take a deep dive into some of those numbers.
Let's go to amps.
Sure.
Yeah. So amps, we didn't actually put together an article for amps this year. But I don't know, maybe we should have, because it's a pretty interesting one. I'd say like this was actually an inflection year when it comes to amps. If you look at the best sellers. So the reason I say that is, if we look at the top 20, there was only one traditional amp in the bestseller list. The remaining 19 were essentially modelers.
Wow.
That is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
That is utterly heartbreaking.
The only like kind of traditional amp was the Fender Deluxe Reverb Tone Master, and that one was number 19 on our list.
Okay, well, hold on. So do you mean that everything else, what here would be like tube driven, or are you saying, like, I guess, let me back up. What is qualifying as an amp on this list? I mean, are you putting like the Quad Cortex on this list, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like amps and modelers all together.
Amps and modelers together.
Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
That's kind of how we've looked at it in the past. So yeah, the Neural DSP Quad Cortex was the top selling amp. And actually essentially like the item that made the most revenue on Reverb. So, in terms of the number of sales times like the item price.
Wait, across Reverb period.
Yeah.
So the number one, I want to make sure we got this right. So the number one product this year on Reverb, platform wide, was the Quad Cortex.
Yep. In terms of sales.
Wow.
Yeah.
The full fat one or the little one?
The bigger one. Yeah.
Wow.
Dang, man.
That's crazy. It's interesting because the one thing that like I have to remember about this is like you got to ship this thing. So like,
yeah.
Like this is a group, a section of people that we're analyzing here, and we're not looking at. And I think this is where the waters get a little muddy, because a lot of people assume, oh, this is the trend across everything. But you guys aren't necessarily looking. You can't say, oh, this is like what's happening in every guitar store across America. And I think that's where like people start to confuse like their argument a little bit, because undoubtedly there's countless stores across the entire country and world which are selling amps where they walk through the door, because shipping an amp, especially used, is a real pain.
Yeah.
But it's insane that only one technically is like a combo style amplifier.
Yeah. I mean, there's other, like kind of cabinet or combo-esque amps in there, like a, positive grid Spark, or like the Boss Cantanas, those are in there. But then you also have like Fractals and the Kempers in there. So yeah, a lot of the things that are selling are the modelers. And, the reason I think this one's interesting, because if we go back to 2019 and even 2020, it was completely flipped. The top sellers at that time were, the Blues Junior, the Deluxe Reverb, Hot Rods, AC-15s. So mostly traditional amps with, just the Boss Katanas in there, kind of intermixed. So now it's just like completely flipped around.
So go ahead and round out the top 5 for us. What are those slots?
Yeah, so the top 5: Neural DSP, the Positive Grid Spark, the Line 6 Helix, the UAD aux box. We put that one in amps. It's attenuator, and then the Boss Katana.
Okay. So the aux box tells me people, because I have one. It's on top of the shelf. You can't see here. I use it every day. Because I have, this shelf of amps. It's useful for me, like making the content and stuff. Like it's patched into my patch bay. It works. I'm not going to lie though. This does break my heart. I'm a dyed in the wool tube amp guy, and I'm going to die on this hill. I don't care if all of the guitar internet just hates me for this. I cannot wait for this pendulum to swing back towards tube amps, which it will. Mark my words, viewer. It will. Eventually it will. It will. Something will come out. Something will happen. I don't care if it's 15 years from now, 20 years from now. People, I think, will eventually go back to some kind of tube. Is there anything even on the list? Because you said that the Deluxe Reverb is the Tone Master. So is there anything tube driven on this list this year at all?
Not in the top 20. Number 22 was the AC-15.
Okay.
There you go. Little wimpy Vox for you.
Hey, man, the AC-15 will move some air.
No, I'm kidding. That's wild. And I would take a bet. I don't know if we want to play some bets on this. I don't know like when we'll see it swing back. I think it's just going to get more and more niche. And I think modelers are just going to get better. But, at least, hey, people are buying aux boxes and they're using it with a tube amp of some sort at home, right?
I'll be the last guy using a tube amp live. I don't care. At this point, it makes me just want to because I do like modelers. I'm half joking. I mean, I have an Axe Effects right here, and I've used them. I've toured with them. They're great tools. They have a place. But come on, guys. It's just when everyone is playing the same thing, which is kind of what's happening now. I feel like this is kind of confirming a hunch that I had about the Quad Cortex, where it's like I'm seeing a lot more Quad Cortexes out there. It's like when you're all using the same piece of gear, and yes, I know people's presets are different. You're using different captures and stuff, but you kind of do all sound the same after a while. So, I can't wait to read the comments on this episode, but yeah.
Well, and part of it too, is like when you get into guitar now, like where do you go? You go typically to the internet to look for the gear to use. And like, if you're playing at home and this is like what you do, or you're learning or whatever, like your entry point is going to be a modeler. And so it's just going to kind of keep progressing that way. If that's, your only, understanding of the instrument and how it should sound is through headphones, then maybe, I hope it swings back. I do, but
I mean, I get it. You're right. Like I totally understand. This is just like, I'm a lifelong car lover. I love cars, have loved cars my whole life since I was a little kid. And this is like reading a list where the list is the number one selling car this year is a Tesla. Like, okay. I mean, and look, I feel like I'm shitting on Neural DSP. I'm not. They've made a great product. Obviously, I have a Quad Cortex. It's great. But there's just something that's like, I don't know, everyone playing the same thing. Like, I don't, maybe I'm way out of line here, but that's my thought.
If only they emitted the smell of hot tubes.
It's a special smell, man.
It is.
It's a special smell.
So before we got started, you mentioned something about some interesting like talking points, Cyril, about like biggest price fluctuations, and I think that is interesting. And also, maybe we can end with this after we talk about that: how to find the best deals. So
Well, we got to talk about pedals after this, though. We got to do pedals.
Okay, well, yeah.
And then-
Jeez, hold on. Sorry, let me pull that up. Pedals is. Or go ahead.
Well, what were you going to say, Cyril, on the price fluctuation bit?
Yeah, we could talk about that, or we could go into the pedals first.
All right, let's do pedals, and then we'll do like price fluctuations. Final thoughts, and I want to get into some predictions for next year. So let's do pedals.
Cool. Yeah. So, pedals, we kind of look at it a few different ways. One, in terms of the new releases, and Rhett, this one's also going to break your heart. Yeah.
Hey, it's not though. Number two, that's my jam right there.
Yeah. So number one was the IK Multimedia Tone X one, which is, kind of the small version of that Tone X pedal, which, is essentially an amp modeler.
Yep.
Yeah. Number two, that hologram electronics chroma console thing is totally awesome.
Man, number 6, the MXR Randy Rhoads Distortion Plus. That's an interesting one to see that high up.
This list is weird to me. I don't know.
This is weird. The further I get down the list, I'm like, wait, Joshua Ambient Echo, the Ego Comp. I mean, there's some usual suspects here. Germanian, Tumnus, Warm Audio Ring Bringer, 19. Wait, what is the ringer? Is that a ring mod?
It's like a Moger Foger.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
It's interesting because some of these things you would never expect to be this much of a top seller. Like the Randy Rhoads Distortion. Like that's cool. Distortion Plus. The interesting pedal. Not for everybody, but I would never have guessed it would have earned number 6 in the top 10 best-selling pedals. But this is best-selling pedals that were released this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
these are all new releases from this year.
Yeah. So, also, does anyone know how to pronounce this?
I was just looking at that and I didn't want to say it because I was afraid I was going to embarrass myself. It's got to be hot tone, right?
Well, it's just one T. So it's either ho tone.
It can't be ho
or
tone.
hot one.
Ampero 2 stage. I'm assuming that's an amp in a box kind of.
I don't know. But
okay, but the Tone X thing doesn't bother me because here's why. The Tone X one, that makes perfect sense to me. It's small. It goes on your board. It's actually really useful. I haven't played one, but I have the bigger Tone X. As a tube amp player that sometimes has to use modelers, like that to me makes sense. I like the UA effect pedals, the UA amp pedals for this reason, where it's like, as an amp guy, the way I'm going to use a modeler is like using something where it's just, I'm going to treat it like an amplifier and I'm going to put it on the floor next to my pedal board and plug into it and treat it like an amp. So to me, the Tone X one makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But I think the more interesting list is the best-selling pedals just of the whole year, just overall top 20 here. Because it's like, I mean, I feel like any of us could, if you said, write down what you think the top 20 best-selling pedals of the year are, you'd probably pick most of these. There's a few surprises in it, but Keeling Compressor, number 1, awesome. Yeah. Blues Driver, yeah, makes sense. HX Stomp, yeah. The Digitech Drop coming in at number 6, that one kind of surprises me, but maybe that's in a realm that I don't quite understand. But this is like, I mean, like a greatest hits list of most pedals for the most part.
Yeah. The UA Dream 65 is on there. That's cool. 2 hologram pedals, the Chroma Console and the Microcosm are on here. That's cool. Greer Lightspeed still showing up. I mean, that pedal, that one's still going however many years later. Andy Timmons, the Keeley Halo Dual Echo Andy Timmons. I am surprised by the number 1 slot, though, I have to admit, being a compressor. That's interesting.
I think like when you listen to a lot of music that people are making now that is super like direct sounding, it does have that kind of compressed feel, that sort of, just quacky immediacy, like super clean thing. So maybe that is like part like of the norm now when you're talking about like building a guitar rig. Oh, you got to have like a compressor pedal, which I I vehemently against.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Just play better.
Let me tell you something. You don't have to. Cyril, what do you think about this list?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's kind of like the greatest hits pedal list here. The Keeley compressor is an interesting one because that one is almost always on the top selling list. It's always just like one of the things that's selling the most. I think part of why that one sells so well is it's kind of like the compressor, maybe besides, like an MXR. There's probably a few other options in there, Boss, but I think that one, there's so many variations of, overdrives and fuzz pedals and, chorus pedals that they don't consolidate quite as much as, something like the Keeley compressor.
That's, you know what? Okay. So I'm glad you said that because in my mind, just looking at this list, I immediately went to like, wait, so compressors outsold overdrive pedals, and that's not necessarily true, right? Like we're just saying that's the number one selling pedal, but to your point, probably sold way more distortions, overdrives, boosts as a category overall compared to this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like when a pedal has existed for so long, and there's so many, especially in circulation, because like I can't even begin to fathom how many used pedals are sold on Reverb every day. Who knows? You might know, but it is like got to be just a crazy number. So, just thinking about that, just the people, trying it and it trading hands, it could be every month you might get these things and say, and then someone else buys it. And, you just have that sort of keep the continual flipping. So maybe that is a contributing factor to all this too. Because some of these things I wouldn't really guess would be that high or even be on this list. And yet here they are. They're still part of the conversation, still things that people are going for.
I mean, that's why I signed up for Reverb years ago, which fun fact, I figured out by talking to Jim from Reverb that because he went and looked at my account and I signed up for Reverb something like 6 months earlier than he started with the company. And he's like one of the OG Reverb guys. So yeah. I'm proud to say I'm a true OG Reverb user. But for me, especially early on, it was like, to spend money on a pedal meant that I had to sell a pedal to get a new thing. So my account those first few years was just like all pedals going up. And I was doing that exact thing that you mentioned, Cyril. Like, okay, I think I want this, so I'm going to sell this and immediately turn around and put that money into this next thing. And it was a cool way to get my hands on a lot of different stuff and be able to try it and settle on what I liked and what I didn't. And yeah, it was great.
The one other thing that's kind of interesting on here is, the Tube Screamer. That one's kind of always a top seller. The Greer Lightspeed is kind of, like a Tube Screamer clone.
No. The Plumes
Careful,
is,
Cyril.
Careful.
The Plumes is, Lightspeed is not. Don't confuse people. Then they're going to be like, hey, I heard on Dipped in Tone.
The Lightspeed.
They'll get mad at us.
It's based on a Timmy, isn't it?
Kind of, yeah.
All
right, Zach, set us all straight. What is the Lightspeed? Where does it come from?
Timmy-ish.
Timmy-ish. Okay.
Okay. More of a Timmy. But
sorry.
Yes. So then, the Plumes, that's always like a hot seller. The JHS Bonsai, that one, sells really well. The Keeley Noble Screamer is on there. Again, not on this list, but just in terms of if you look at kind of like Tube Screamer-esque pedals, because that tends to be like one of the most popular like groupings of pedals.
I know that's right.
Yeah, it's just such a known entity at this point. It's obviously for people that are afraid to experiment and step out and try new things, and they just go with what people on the internet tell them is the best thing to go with, and so they end up with the Tube Screamer. So
just get a Mythos envy. I'm disappointed by the lack of Mythos Dipped in Tone community.
Yeah, what the hell, Zach?
On this list. Why are you blaming me? I'm doing my job. Man.
Apparently not. You're not on this list.
Yet another failure to carve into my back. Okay.
Yeah, but what's crazy is I found about 80 Tube Screamer variants that we've sold on Reverb.
Please don't. All right, we'll bring them up because Zach inevitably will have to buy
No.
the remaining 50. So
I buy Ibanez and Maxon. That is what I have my one Vimaram. That's what I buy.
Okay. All right.
And I do have my Kirk Hammett stuff because I'm a dyed in the wool Metallica fan. So, but that's okay. It's always nearby.
But you gotta wait 3 months from now when we do Shill of the Week. There's going to be some Tube Screamer clone that is not a Ibanez or Maxon coming up, and then that's going to be the gateway drug. And next thing you know, well, this is a Tube Screamer, but this is this person's Tube Screamer. And
no, I don't care. I care less about that because, that's why I made mine. But anyway,
all right. So price fluctuations. This is a really interesting thing here. So what do we have?
What we've seen this year is, prices are starting to come down, particularly for, used instruments and actually in a lot of cases for new instruments as well. So, what we've really seen is a lot of the popular electric guitars, prices are probably about 5% lower than where they were last year. But they're, for the most part, still kind of elevated compared to where they were in 2019. And, especially when you look at vintage guitars, while it is a little bit mixed, generally a lot of those prices kind of peaked in 2021, 2022. That's when they were at, kind of like a premium. And then since then, have been coming down slightly. I would say, almost all of them are about 25% higher in price though than they were in 2019, like pre-pandemic.
Wow. Okay.
Do you think that part of that, because here's my thought, because I living in the the manufacturing side and the retail side of it, I see it kind of from all angles, but part of me wonders if during that boom of COVID, you had all these people getting into guitar, and they may not have quite understood the buying and selling mentality and the devaluation of something, just like buying a car, and understanding, after I buy this, after X amount of time, I'm going to lose this much. And people were holding a bit more firm, and that kind of pushed the market up so that used prices kind of just started to average out higher, and people just began to accept it. And now it's finally starting to creep back down after those guitars, that huge bubble has kind of popped and started to sell off the things that they bought during that insane time in the guitar space.
Yeah, I think that's right on. There was all this demand for, guitars during that time frame. And also, inventory and supply was low, right? A lot of manufacturers couldn't, kind of bring new things to market. There was just a lot of interest in, vintage gear. People were getting better prices. So it just kind of raised the whole market. And as you said, now, some people have maybe not playing as much. Other people are, thinking, all right, I can make money on this instrument over time, kind of holding firm on the price. And when that happens, it's just really hard to sell it. Really what we're seeing is, for the items to really move quickly, if you want to sell something on Reverb and kind of fund your next purchase, you do have to just list it at a lower price.
Yeah, just eliminate that barrier to entry, because oftentimes in the used market, you're going to be haggling back and forth, and especially if you have the make our offer button ticked on your listing, that's typically what I will do is I'll list something where I want to sell it, and it's usually 10% ish under, or 15% or whatever it is under what the typical asking price is. And my experience has been that it sells much faster and I don't have to do all that back and forth stuff. What about, is there anything this year in terms of price fluctuation that sort of sticks out as, maybe this took a big leap this year, X whatever year Telecasters, for example, or is it just kind of general trend overall?
Yeah, I would say generally things are coming down. There are a few standouts of things that I think of retain their value, maybe even a little bit more than I would have expected. Some of the 70s SGs seem to be just kind of holding where they were. Haven't come down quite as much. What else? some of the 80s Strats actually have done pretty well.
Interesting. What does that mean, done pretty well? Like, explain that a little bit.
Yeah, just, the prices have like plateaued since they, maybe not again, like quite peak, but they've been, holding steady. So, some of these like late 70s, early 80s Strats, they're selling for around like $2,000, and they've been kind of like at that range for about a year or two.
Okay.
Dang. I got an 86 Strat in my house. I need
You gotta make some money, man.
Yeah, there you go.
Get it out there. Nice.
Yeah, but then a lot of the other instruments for the most part are just kind of coming down. The other exception is if you find really rare like vintage guitars, particularly like acoustic guitars, something like a pre-war Martin, or an old Gibson acoustic guitar, like those things tend to retain their value really well. But then you have to find the right buyer who's willing to kind of throw down for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, pre-war Martins, you're talking, well into the 6-figure range for some of them, high 5 figures,
Yeah.
6s. I mean, yeah, that's a right buyer kind of mentality. But
Yeah.
any word on 1965 SG Juniors, completely original? I'm just asking for a friend because
But I do pretty well.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Great. I'll let him know.
Well, do you guys want to kind of wrap up with maybe some handy tips and tricks on how to find the best deals on Reverb? Because I know like there's more than just sorting that you can do. There's a lot of filtering and a lot of things that you can use to narrow down like your field of vision, so to speak.
Yeah. So here's an interesting stat. There's about 2.5 million used items that are listed on Reverb a year.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that works out to be about 7,000 used items published a day.
Whoa.
So there's a lot of stuff coming onto Reverb all the time. It's kind of mind-boggling, right? And Rhett, you were kind of talking like when you list stuff, you're listing it, maybe 10% below the kind of like normal price. That stuff probably sells in a day or two.
Yeah.
What we see
it goes
is
pretty quick.
Yeah, what we see is like 10% of items just sell right away, first day. About 30% sell in a week, and then it kind of trickles off after there. But part of the reason I mention that is if you're looking to find a deal or you want to find something specific, you kind of have to be like engaging on Reverb on a pretty regular basis. Coming, maybe checking, like recently listed items. But there's some tools that really help, using save searches. So you can, kind of save any like search with some criteria in there. That way, anytime, someone lists something that meets that criteria, you can, get a notification about it. The other thing that I've found is interesting too is just kind of doing some broad searches and then, kind of whittling it down. Because sometimes you go in and you're like, I want to buy, a 1972 SG that's, in a walnut finish. And then sometimes, you just want to be inspired and you start with something like, MIJ as a search term. And then you can just like whittle it down and, maybe find some brand that you had never even heard of before because there's, a few search terms in there that meet that criteria. So I found that just to be a good way to discover things that you might not even knew existed. And then the other one is just making offers.
Yeah.
Most of the items on Reverb, tend to accept offers. And, if you make an offer and, start kind of like having a negotiation with someone, a lot of times you'll be able to come to, an agreement on the price. So that really helps a lot as well.
Yeah, that's been my experience. Like, and the advice I would give to people if you're selling on Reverb is like, even if you're firm on the price of whatever you're selling, click that make an offer button, because I think that tells people that you're willing to negotiate. And I notice that in my own searches, if I'm looking for a piece of gear and I come across a listing and it's like just a set price, I'm less likely to engage with it because I'm like, well, that's not what I want to pay. So I'll just go on to the next listing. And the save search thing is huge. That's something I just recently did. I'm looking for a very specific guitar right now. I'm actually making a video about this whole process. It's a guitar that I sold on Reverb years ago to buy another guitar, and I really have missed it since I sold it. So I'm trying to track down the guitar that I sold, but since that is like a needle in a haystack, I've got a saved search for like the specific year, make, model, and color of that guitar so that every single time one pops up, A, it could be mine. I have the serial number and I'm referencing it, but B, on the pretty good chance that I can't find mine, I can find one that is the same year, make, and model of it and go from there. And the third thing is, the thing I like about Reverb for me is it's kind of become my go-to like standard for checking where the market is on something. So when I bought that Greco 2 weeks ago, it was a Guitar House of Tulsa, and I saw it sitting on the stand. I played it and I checked the hang tag, but I'm not like super up to date on the prices of Greco Les Pauls. So the first thing I did is I went to Reverb and I just searched for that guitar and just looked at the listings and looked at sold listings and could see like where the price was. And I saw that they were in line with the market, so to speak. So it's cool that Reverb has kind of, at least for me and people I know, become like the indicator for where the market is overall. So
I have a saved search for Klon box because my Klon does not have a box, and I could just buy a white box, but I want a real Klon box.
But do people sell just Klon boxes?
Oh yeah, I bought a original. Well, no, I traded to a friend, Mark Hopkins. I traded him because he just had an original like the photocopy of the instructions and the little Switchcraft like power adapter and something else that Bill originally included. It might be like the business card. I bought that because mine didn't have it, so I want the whole set. You know, collector mentality, right? But I love it, and to the point of everything you guys just said, one of my favorite tools as a seller, and you know, I do think you should have offers on used stuff, absolutely. But a tool that a lot of people might not know is deep in the settings of your seller's account. You can switch on a switch that automatically disregards any crazy lowball offers because so many people are jerks. And if you do that, you won't even know. So just tell them to get out of here. So that's a great tool because I think some people they don't want to deal with that hassle. And if you do this, then you don't have to. So
yeah, that's me, man. I hate haggling.
Yeah,
and which is why I don't do Craigslist or any of that's Facebook Marketplace anymore. So like I don't want to meet in person and then like discuss it. I don't want to do that. I just want to like buy it and then you ship it to me and be done with it. So
yeah.
I'm going to turn that feature on.
Well, I think this has been illuminating. I think it's always interesting to see kind of behind the curtain of what the market is kind of doing for you know, everybody, not just the people who are posting their crazy stuff on Instagram, but the people who are, you know, buying this stuff. Like it's mostly just people making music at home for fun, for the joy of making music, which ultimately is what this is all about. So I think this was great. I appreciate all the conversation, Cyril, and I hope maybe next year we can come back and do this again and see where the market has led.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this has been great. I love talking about this stuff. And yeah, I think it'll be really cool, actually. Maybe next year we can go back and like trade notes, see what things are different. See if, you know, right, your prediction is right. Tube amps are back. And, you know, we got to...
Come on, man. We got to get it there, y'all.
y'all.
Come on. Sell those modelers and get back into a tube amp. Cyril, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to put these numbers together for us and jump on the podcast. We would love to have you back 1 year from today, and we'll do this again.
All right. Sounds great.
Thanks, man.
Big fan of the podcast. Love it, guys. Thank you.
Okay. I am genuinely upset by the amp list.
Well,
I just can't let it go, man. It makes me so sad.
You know, it's just the current world we live in. I hope you're right. I hope the pendulum does swing, and I hope that one day champs and entry level little tube amps become like the thing that every young guitarist wants. But I don't know.
I mean, look, if jeans can swing as hard as they do, from skinny jeans back to Jinkos and stuff that's happening now.
Oh my God.
I have faith that that tube amps will make a comeback in some way at some time. I may not be alive to see it. I fully recognize that, but
I thought someone recently talked about Jinko being back.
Oh yeah.
And I thought it was like a really funny joke because I had Jinko jeans so wide, and I wore like gigantic Airwalk like skateboard shoes. They were so wide they would cover my entire foot. And I thought, there's no way people want those.
There's some dude on TikTok that keeps popping up where he has Jinkos in, and he'll put like a whole PlayStation or something in the back pocket, and he has inline skates on, and he'll like put a PlayStation in the back pocket and then jump up and grind a rail. It's pretty sick.
They're literally that big.
They're literally that big. I'm thankful to say that I never wore Jinkos because my parents wouldn't let me have them, and that was one of the things that, looking back, one of the only things that I'm glad they didn't let me do.
I think you're like just young enough, and like, okay, we didn't dive into the reverb, like a little bit of this part of reverb. I have enjoyed using reverb for as long, I don't know how long I've been using it apparently, but I've always enjoyed it because I was an eBay guy. But I was on eBay in high school, and one of the things I would buy on eBay in high school were Jinko jeans that would fit me because I couldn't afford new ones. And so I, like, a lot of my Jinkos and stuff I was wearing to high school were used ones I bought on eBay.
Dude, that's the most 1998 thing I've ever heard.
It was like 2000, come on, man.
Zach, how much was a pair of Jinkos back in the day used? What could you get them for?
Who knows? I mean, they were probably like $20-$30 or something,
It's
like,
cheaper than I thought you were going to say.
But they weren't crazy. But I loved eBay. I have my eBay account is like from the early 2000s, and I used it all the time. So
I just can't get over the quad cortex thing. I'm still thinking about it.
You're gonna be stewing on that for weeks.
I just why does it bother me so much? I don't know why it bothers me.
Because you have lived you have toured, you have gigged, you know the difference. I think that's it. You have experienced both sides of it. And like, I don't think anyone who has experienced that would ever argue for, well, they would never say that modeling is better and a better experience. It may be easier.
It's convenient. And it's easy, and look at how consistent it is, and all that stuff. I get it, but dude, you're playing rock and roll, man. Like, load your damn amp into the venue and turn it up and play it, please. Like,
well, but I wonder, like, an interesting metric that we can't. I mean, who could ever say? But like, I wonder what style of music is like the norm for this sort of product. Is it higher gain stuff? Is it just people exploring classic rock?
I think it's a combination of, I mean, obviously most of it is bedroom players, right? Because that's the widest section of the market, right? Most of the guitar market are bedroom hobbyists and players, which is perfectly fine, right? But in terms of the professional stuff, at least from what I see, which is anecdotal evidence, it's a lot of like the pop stuff, because those types of gigs, players have to have silent stages, which is lame. Sorry, silent stages will always be lame. But I get it. It's a necessity. I understand. And then I think it's a lot of like the higher gain sort of metal crowd, that kind of stuff. Do you remember, because I have a distinct memory of the first time I saw a stage where there were no amps on it, on like a big show. Because I remember mine. I just wonder if you remember yours. Because mine was the Weezer Maladroit tour. And I went to that show, and I was looking at the stage, and I thought, are they going to like wheel out some Marshall stacks or something? Like, how are we going to hear these guys? And they were playing, I think they were playing like pods back then. And it sounded like Weezer. I think mine was Coldplay in 2012 when they had the Milo Xyloto record out. They headlined a big festival here in Atlanta that I went to go see, and maybe it was just where I was standing, but I don't remember seeing any amps. And I remember having that thought of like, how are they gonna? Where's the guitar amp at?
Right.
And I was standing kind of right in front of the sub, so all I could hear was the synth bass and sub bass the whole time. And yeah, if there was a brown note, we got pretty close to finding it at that show.
Dang.
Yeah, I don't know. It just is not. We should talk about it more in the bonus, I guess. But
Sure, let's do that. Well,
all right. Well, so join Patreon if you want to hear us continue to rant about this stuff. But for now, we want to do our shills of the week. You want to go first?
sure. Yeah, I just saw myself in the camera and realized like, it's not my white balance is off. It's just how pale I am.
Hell yeah, man.
So I think it's safe to say that I have a problem.
I swear to God, Zach, hold on.
What? It's not Tooth Screamer.
Okay.
I promise.
Okay. All right. Okay.
It's another Les Paul.
Oh, okay. That's a better problem to have.
Yeah. So, I messed up in that I was doing a live stream, and I mentioned I think I kind of want like a 54 wrap tail, P90 wrap tail thing. And one of my friends who works, Greg, who works at Wildwood Guitars, said, "Oh, hey, you want one of those, huh?" And so he sent me a text the next day with this, and he's like, "It's real good." I'm like, great. So I thought about it, and
well, when you say thought about it, how long did that take?
a couple hours.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought you were going to say about 8 seconds, but
No. Yeah, I thought about it for a little while, and so I nabbed it. Wildwood is the best. They always ship stuff really fast, and
it's a custom shop R7?
R4.
R4.
So it has the wrap tail, which was a 53 to 50, late 55.
Have I taken you to Big House Guitars?
Not yet.
Okay. When you come down soon, I'm going to take you to Big House because they have the mintest 54 gold top I've ever seen. It was bought new.
Looks like this.
Well, it has the trapeze. And it's so
52.
early. It's so early that the neck angle is wrong. The trapeze tail, it's almost impossible to play. It sucks.
Is it
to play.
unbound?
I don't remember if it's bound or not, but
Yeah.
the story on it is the guy that bought it new, supposedly it was given to him by Les Paul, I believe.
Okay.
Whatever it was, I believe the guy died in 57, and then it just stayed in its case until about 5 or 6 years ago, I want to say.
Wow.
Until Big House acquired it. I mean, it probably is as new or newer looking than that guitar. There is not a scratch on it.
Yeah, well, that makes sense about a 52 because you couldn't play those things. And so the early ones, they're not bound. Oftentimes they don't have the poker chip.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, it's really good. It's, like 8.5 pounds. I had actually bought from Greg at Wildwood. They have like just drawers of parts. And he's like, "Hey, you want these actual vintage 50s speed knobs?" I was like, yeah, I do. So I bought these, and then they were like too like ambered to put on my other 54 with humbuckers, but they look right on this. So, and it's really nice. It's resonant. And yeah,
Hell yeah.
This was a hard one to explain to the wife. She was like, "You have a gold one with a wrap tail." I was like, "Yeah, but this one's got P90s."
Yeah, but this one's different.
Oh man. So
well, listen, when you get ready to sell that one in a couple months, I will gladly take that one off your hands.
I don't sell my Les Paul.
That is true. Actually, you don't sell your Les Pauls. That's one of the few things that you don't get. Like you don't sell. You hold on to your Les Pauls pretty well.
The guitars, like for me, man, you can hear someone trying the guitars at high voltage. The guitars for me are I'm very emotionally attached to instruments that it's really hard for me to let stuff go unless I buy it out of sheer excitement or stupidity. Usually if I genuinely want something, then I want it, and I want it for a long time. So, but anyway,
so
what you got?
Ready to sell that one? I will take that one off your hands. All right, give me a second. Okay, so mine's a guitar as well. I recently did a video shootout, 5 levels of Martin. 4 of them were D18s. 1 of them was a D28. We won't get into details of why that happened. But this I decided to keep. Originally, I was going to send them all back, but this is the Martin D18, just the standard, normal, I think $2,700 made in Nazareth Martin D18. Not a guitar I was expecting to enjoy or want to keep.
Yeah.
But once I played all 5 of them, and one of them was one of the 1937 authentic D28s, $10,000 acoustic. This one really stuck out to me. And it was when I was editing the video and I was like mixing the different performances and listening to it. I was like, God, that guitar sounds good. And I would keep picking it up and playing it. And I was like, damn. And I'm not really an acoustic guy. This guitar has made me sit down and play acoustic every single day since I've had it for the last week or so.
Do you think it's something about the mahogany back inside? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also think that this is a particularly good one. Now, I haven't played a ton of them. Again, I'm not like a Martin Dreadnought expert by any stretch of the imagination, but it does the thing that I like guitars to do, which it's lightweight and the whole thing is ringing, like all down the neck, the whole body. I mean, it's a great guitar. So I emailed Sweetwater. The way I do that stuff when I do these like 5 levels of it is they send me the guitars, and it's a huge pain in the ass because like the boxes that Sweetwater ships in are huge. So I have 5 massive guitar boxes in the house for a few weeks. And so I asked them to send me the 5 return labels. And then after they sent them to me, I was like, I think I want to keep this one. I have an idea. So sent the other 4 back. With this, I've decided to start what I'm calling the D18 project, which is, this is a brand new guitar. It's mint. So I recorded it. I made a video, played some examples. And then 1 year from now, I'm going to set up with the same mic in the same position and try with same strings, same pick and everything. I'm going to try and play the same thing as best as possible to try and document how this guitar opens up and changes and breaks in over time. And if it goes well, I might do that every year, and then we'll just check in on the old, the D18 every year. And the funny thing was that I didn't realize it, but I had posted that video announcing the project on December 18th. And somebody pointed that out in the comments. Genuinely total coincidence. So December 18th is now D18 day over at my place.
I was like, what's so significant about that?
Yeah, man. Damn, that brain fog's really getting to you.
Idiot.
No, man, it's just a great.
There's something about like finding like an acoustic guitar that really resonates with you, because it's like, I'm not saying that as like, a connection thing. I'm like literally resonates with you because when you find an acoustic that you hold and you feel your whole body becoming part of the sound. Yeah. You can't explain it. And once you experience it, you just like, those are the things that you look for.
Yeah. It's made me realize, like, I think this guitar sounds, this sounds better than my Bourgeois, which is a significantly more expensive guitar when I bought it 12 years ago, and who knows where it is now. But like, it goes to show that like, you don't have to spend a ton of price, and sound quality and vibe and feel are not correlated. Like, this is just the standard, quote, not special, regular ass D18, right? There's no VTS. It's not an HD. It's not nothing. It's just a straight up D18. And I don't know that I've had an experience with an acoustic guitar like this where I'm like, I just want to play this guitar.
Yeah. I think it also goes to show at how good all these companies are getting at making their products and like that never ending pursuit of making the best instruments they can possibly make.
Yeah. And it smells phenomenal. I wish the smell would never go away. Oh, dude, that new mahogany and spruce smell.
Rhett, I've had my 0015, which is all mahogany, for 6 or 7 years, and it still smells good. Yes. So there is hope yet. There is hope. It smells amazing. It's like chocolate. It's just
the best, dude. It's just the best. So yeah, the guitar needs a little bit of a setup. The bridge needs to come down a little bit. The action's a little high, but otherwise I'm going to just play it. I'm going to take it out and play it as much as possible. I'm going to travel with it when applicable. I'm not going to put a pickup in it or anything. If we if I do want to play it amplified, I'll get a sound hole pickup. It's something not permanent. And yeah, man, it's my Martin. Never owned a Martin before. So
Man,
there you go.
very cool. Thanks to everybody for checking out this episode. Thanks again to Reverb for sponsoring the episode, and for everybody over on Patreon for supporting the show. We appreciate you. And if you want to learn more about all these things, just check out the description or the show notes, and you can check out our Reverb page or our Patreon account.
Yeah. Appreciate y'all.
See ya.